Welcome to our Everlast tech support channel. Today we'll be helping you replace the main inverter in your MIG machine. This board replacement guide will be common for a lot of MIG machines, but some soldering may be required depending on the age of the unit. Once you have the machine opened up, we'll start by removing the 4 mounting screws that go through the bottom of the machine into the sideboard. Then we will remove the 4 screws going through the back panel that mount the breaker switch. We're going to remove the 2 screws mounting this control power board to the top tray and unplug connector X1. This will allow us to move the control power board around and out of our way. Now we can remove the inverter power and control power from the breaker switch. Then we can remove the last 2 screws holding this circuit board in. Now we'll start unplugging the control wiring from the top board. You could have 5 to 6 locations that will need to be disconnected. Location J21 is only if your machine is a dual voltage unit. If the plug locations were different than what was shown, please take a photo before removing any connections. On the side of the main inverter board, we'll need to unplug connector X10. On some units, this wire might be soldered on, and we'll need to remove the ground wire located at the bottom of the board as well. At this point, we'll need to cut all the zip ties across the top tray that's dressing all the cabling so that we can pull all the connectors that we unplugged from the top control board down through to the bottom of the machine. After you have the cabling pulled through, we'll lean the board out and slide it forward slightly so that we can pull it out of the machine and lay it down flat. At this point, we are disconnecting all of the cabling for the MIG wire feeder. We'll also need to remove the rest of the zip ties going up the side, addressing that cabling. Now we will remove the main wires coming off the transformer to this coil by pulling back this sheath and removing this 10mm bolt. For the final step to remove this board, you'll need to take off the 12 or 13mm bolt that holds this cable to the bottom heatsink. To start off reinstalling the new board, we'll address all the connections at the back of the sideboard. We'll reinstall this large copper conductor and tighten it back to the heatsink. Before reattaching the wires off of the transformer, we'll want to get this protective jacket from your previous board and slide it over the two conductors, then bolt the cables to the coil. After you've tightened down that 10mm bolt, be sure to slide that protective jacket over the bolt and the exposed copper on the coil. Next, we'll reinstall all the control connections for the MIG wire feeder. Now we're going to lift up the sideboard and start to feed all of the wires through to the top tray. You'll have 4 wires for your main inverter power that you'll need to feed up near the back breaker switch. The IGBT driver cabling will feed up underneath the back control power board. And the other 3 or 4 cables will feed up by the top control board. Once you've pulled all the wires through to the top tray and we're able to stand up the board, we'll install a screw in each of the top corners of the circuit board. Before moving to the next step, please ensure that all of the control wires are in front of the circuit board. And ensure that the 4 power wires that feed the inverter have not slipped back down behind the board. Now we're going to finish mounting the inverter board in the machine by reinstalling the 4 Phillips screws that go up through the bottom frame of the machine. Now we just need to finish off plugging in all of the control connections. This blue and yellow wire plugs into J13. This black wire will plug back into location X10, or it will need to be soldered on to one of the pins on the new board. And we'll reattach the ground wire to the middle of the board. Now we'll complete the connections to the top control board, reconnecting your soft start relay, your current transformer, temperature switch, and your IGBT driver. Now we're going to reinstall the wires back to the main breaker switch. We'll have the 4 wires that come up from the main inverter 2 blacks and 2 yellows. We'll need to twist those pairs together. Then we'll need to add the additional control wire power, which are the smaller red and black wires. One of those wires will go to each pair. Then we can fold those wires over and reinstall them into the breaker switch. Now we can remount the breaker switch using the 4 Phillips screws. Remounting the control board, we'll be using the 2 Phillips screws to secure it back to the mounts, and we'll plug in connector X1. You'll need to use some small zip ties to redress all of the cabling running across and down the machine. Before installing the case on the machine, we'll just take a quick look at your old board and the new board to ensure that these spool control jumpers are in the correct location. The image on the right for the connection on the top and bottom left pins is most common for machines that will have a spool selector switch or a function to turn the spool gun on and off through the display. Thank you for working with us today. We hope this video has helped you replace this main inverter in your MIG machine.